Tanks clatter past at 6, heading from the barracks to the town center. I roll over and try to squeeze another half hour. A second convoy rattles the window, waking me up for good. The day begins much like any other has for the last few months in Tabriz. The door edges open and Arash appears in his grey Berkeley sweats, backing in with coffee mugs. He's been up since 5. Best time to write, he says. But he potters mostly, getting the stove going, washing dishes. He has that Iranian blue-black hair, and as he bends down to put the mugs on a pile of books next to the bed, a lock of it falls forwards, glinting like gunmetal in the thin light from the window. I start where I left off last night. Have you changed your mind? Not really. He sits down on the bed and tries to stroke my cheek. I catch the faint scent of lemons before I turn my face away. You said you'd sleep on it. I didn't sleep much with you tossing and turning all night. Let me get you out, please. The whine in my voice makes me feel sick. Damien, how many more times? I'm staying. He reaches to stroke my face again, and this time I let him, breathing in the lemons. He once said to me, you either drink Tabrizi tea through a lump of sugar at the back of your teeth and end up with no teeth, or you don't drink it at all. So he drinks lemon tea instead, and that's another of his morning routines, slicing up lemons. I put my hand over his. People we know have disappeared. They'll come for you next. I'm not important enough. I'm a part-time poet. I've never been on a demo in my life. They know about us. You know they do. Some fundamentalists somewhere will have us on their current list of abominations. He stands up. I have to go to work. He still goes in every day, even though the library at the American consulate has long been closed. Whenever I moan at him for doing this, all he says is that someone needs to be there to guard the books. I've long given up going to the university. No students left to teach, professors leaving the country, or trying to. I spend most days reading Arash's translations of Rumi. I'm supposed to be the Sufi expert, but Arash knows more than I ever will. He walks towards the door, then turns and looks back at me, his head on one side in that birdie way he has. I have to stay here in Tabriz, and you will leave. We both know that. I pull the sheet over my head as he goes out. Waves of misery roll through me, and all I can do is lie there, heavy-limbed and helpless. I feel his side of the bed. I need him next to me, but the bed is cold. There's too much empty space. He will never leave. The thought renders me rigid with fear. The revolution has already started in a raggedy sort of way, though no one is admitting it. And he's a target, whoever ends up in power. The Shah's secret police hold a special hatred for poets. Rumors have made their way from Tehran about what they do to them there. Or the revolutionaries will take him. His year in Berkeley, his job at the American consulate. The fundamentalists will say he's too Western-stricken. But as for being with me, they'll despise him most. I poke my head out from the covers and lie on my back, staring up through the skylight at a solid square of December gray Tabrizi sky. Fragments of memory try to reconnect with each other. Arash looking up at the sky, blue sky, Persepolis Blue. That's what he called the sky at Persepolis. The memories come together and it feels good. It feels better than being in Tabriz, so I close my eyes and fill my mind with Persepolis Blue. It is last March, Nowruz, the Persian New Year. We are the only ones at Persepolis. It's a holy day for Sufis, Arash says, and this place is special to them. We find our way to the Apadana staircase, and I walk along the frieze, running my hand over a line of carved Cappadocian princes, their stone flesh warmed by the early spring sun. Arash is walking ahead of me. He stops and turns round, his face in three-quarter profile, looking like he could have just stepped from the frieze itself. He waits for me to catch up. "You seem dazed," he says, resting his arm on my shoulder. "This place, it makes my head spin." My finger traces the fold of a Persian's fluted crown, over 2,500 years old. I came out to Iran thinking I'd find Persia, but all I've found is Iran. Till now. Don't let it fool you too much. He examines a lock of curled hair, delicately chiseled behind the ear of an Assyrian. All this lot still had to pay tribute to an emperor, remember. This one just happens to be Darius. He leans against the frieze, and for a moment he is flanked on either side by two Assyrians. He shrugs. Darius, the Shah. All emperors think they're invincible. What will you do if he falls? As soon as the words come out, I wish I could stuff them back in my mouth. I'm not sure I want to know. All this, it's what we were and what we are. From Darius to the Shah, it's Persia and it's Iran. I'm part of it. If the Shah goes, we'll have to work out what comes next. So I'll stay. He reaches out to me, draws me close, and over his shoulder I see the stone mouth of an Assyrian, a hint of a sardonic smile in the curve of his full lips. We sit on the steps of the staircase, taking in the length of the frieze. Arash looks up at the sky, a sky of lapis lazuli, shading down through palest blues to smudgy whites merging with the horizon. Persepolis Blue, he says. That's what we should call a sky like this. Dust motes from the wall float in the white sunlight. I breathe in the warmth of the sun and close my eyes, the image of the two of us imprinted on my eyelids. "Damien," Arash cuts in from far away. I open my eyes, to the skylight, to the opaque, snow-laden sky. I think, no, I can't be back. No, we're still in Persepolis. "Damien," Arash says again, his voice sounding thin and reedy. And he's there, standing in the bedroom doorway, his face drained of color. "What are you doing back so soon?" Then I see he isn't really standing. He's slumping against the door jamb, clutching some sort of hat in his hands. I jump out of bed, go over to him, and we manage to stumble across to the kitchen. I sit him down, but he won't let me take the hat from him. He has found a dead body in a shop doorway. His quickest way to the consulate is past the prison, and when he reached the shops next to the prison entrance, there it was. "I thought he was sleeping," he says, "but his head didn't look right. It was lying flat on the ground, too flat, like a death mask." The prison is the main base for Savak, the secret police. They're starting to leave bodies out now, as a lesson to others. He hunches over. They tossed his hat near his feet. The street was deserted, but I was being watched, I'm sure of it. I grabbed the hat and ran. I ran away. I reach across, and this time he lets me take the hat. It is a papakh, with a narrow, brimless crown, a squashed version of a Cossack hat. Astrakhan wool. Expensive. I edge it round with the pads of my fingers, staring at the scrollwork patterns made by the dark, tight curls of a lamb's fleece. Most of the whorls of wool are clogged up, smeared brown. "Maybe someone will recognize it. Maybe we can find out who he was," Arash says. He just makes it to the sink before he throws up. Both of us are shaky for the rest of the day. In the evening, I make barley soup, but we just dabble in our bowls and spoon a few beans around. For once, we don't have any music on. All I can hear is the popping of the stove. We stretch out on the floor cushions, our backs against the wall, me nursing my vodka, Arash trying to read. But he keeps taking his glasses off, putting them on again, dropping his hand back down on the page. I reach across and rest my hand over his, taking his fingers in mine. "For God's sake, read to me. I need soothing." We both need soothing, and I know he likes reading to me. His voice is wavery at first, but grows steadier. Once, in the dim old days, all the birds of the world assembled in solemn conclave to consider a momentous question. Din Atar's story of the 30 birds of Persia, the hoopoe, the huma, and the nightingale, and all the tiny birds full of fear with tears in their eyes. Arash once told me Din Atar had written somewhere that writing poetry was like stringing pearls on a necklace. That's one beautiful necklace you made there, I say, when he finishes reading. I've been working on it for weeks, but it's a slow job. He closes his notebook and manages a smile. It might be a pearl too difficult to pierce in the time we've got left. The time we've got left? I can't help myself. I can get you out, I say, and off we go again, even though I know it's useless. I've lived less than half a mile from the poet Sharaya's house for all my life, he says, except for my year at Berkeley, and that half killed me. It probably would have done if I hadn't met you. Whatever happens to me, it'll happen here. There is a resignation I've not heard before in his voice, and fear. He is as frightened as I am, I realize. If he stays, they'll take him and try and break him, and he's feared this all along. Later in bed, we lie watching the stars through the skylight. We are living on the lip of insanity, he says, allowing the tears to come. And all I can do is hold him to me, like a lute. The next morning, the tanks go past as usual, but we are both in bed, both awake. He gets up, says he's going to work. He needs to keep things normal. I resist picking up on normal. My anxiety will make it come out wrong. At least take a taxi, I say. No, he says, he won't go past the prison. He'll take another route, but he needs to walk. I get up with him, and he seems content to sit and let me fuss about, slicing lemons for his tea, making coffee. The papakh is still on the kitchen table where we left it yesterday. He touches it, but doesn't pick it up. When I get back, he says, we'll go to the Bazaar, maybe ask around. Someone will be missing him. And as he goes, he smiles at me, an achingly sad smile. I have a second cup of coffee, stare at the hat for a few minutes, come to a decision. I'll take it to the Bazaar myself, find out what I can. It will please Arash. I find a plastic bag to put the hat in, then hide the bag in my shoulder satchel under some of Arash's Rumi books. I feel a pulse of excitement on doing this, then a skitter of nerves. If I am stopped, I have no idea how I'd explain the papakh under the poetry. I turn into the square and see a tank parked in front of the main entrance to the Bazaar, its guns pointed outwards. People walk around it, never looking directly at it, speeding up as they go past. I find myself doing the same. I call on Arash's cousin, Irvand, the spice seller. The Tabrizis can't live without their spices, however bad things get, and he has a constant daily flow of customers who tell him the latest news. I pass the plastic bag over the palette of cinnabar reds and ochre yellows of his stall display and ask him if he's heard anything. He peers in the bag, gives me a long look, and invites me in for Tabrizi tea. He doesn't mention the hat once. Instead, he tells me about his sister's children, playing in the kuche with their neighbors' children, playing the circle game of the chain weaver uncle, who weaves chains of friendship for children. In this game, they sing the song about the day the chain weaver uncle does not come to see them, and the children are worried about him, so they bring him presents and they clasp each other's hands to make their own chain as a present for him. Irvan's nieces and friends join hands. His nephew goes into the center of the circle, and they all dance around him singing the chain weaver's song. Like Arash and I did when we were kids, says Irvan. Then a neighbor comes out into the kuche and says they shouldn't be singing songs about making chains. They shouldn't be making themselves into chains and putting chains around people. Irvan tells me this story, smiling and shaking his head in a kids will be kids sort of way, his fingers tapping the bag with the hat in it as he speaks. Then he gives the bag back to me. Even in the Bazaar, it seems, even in our great beehive of gossip, fear has struck everyone selectively dumb. I make my way out. There's been a fresh snowfall. It lies on the tank, blurring the lines of its turret and gun barrel, softening it into a mound of vanilla ice cream with a long-handled spoon. But it's still a tank. I get home, take out the hat, put it on the table and pour a vodka. Wait for Arash. 6 o'clock, I begin to feel uneasy. He's always home by 4. When I used to go to work, I'd rely on him to be around when I got home. 8 o'clock, I go downstairs, open the door, look up and down the street. It's deserted. Someone bangs open the top shutters across the way, and there is a quick blast of state television. Then silence as the shutters bang shut again. 9 o'clock, curfew. He's never been out after curfew. I sit there, trying to force the panic back down. Then I hear a shout from up on the roof. I feel a surge of relief. Stupid me, why didn't I check the roof? Maybe he came home early and went up to clear the snow. Maybe he's had a fall. Maybe he's been there all this time. I run up the stairs and throw open the roof door. But the shout isn't from our roof. It's from next door's. I hear, Allahu Akbar, followed by something I can't make out. It drifts across from a house on the left, then from one on the right, and then many voices, point and counterpoint, rising to a crescendo in the darkness, coming from all directions. Shadows float into a group on the roof opposite. Men, children, women in chadors, our neighbors, raising their arms in a football salute to the rhythm of the chant. They're shouting something I've not heard before. It takes a while for me to work out the translation. Death to the Shah! I go downstairs, sit back down at the kitchen table and pour myself another vodka. I pick up the hat, stroke a spot where there's no crust of blood, only the silkiness of the baby lamb's fleece. When he gets home, I'll have to tell Arash I've had no luck at the Bazaar. Only he doesn't get home. He never comes home. He just disappears. Arash Sharinayar becomes one of the disappeared. It's 3 months since Arash found the Papakh Hat. The Shah is long gone, and the revolution has already started to chase its tail. The fundamentalists have warned me I must leave. I see Arash often, standing by the doorway of our bedroom. His face is still, mask-like, a face on a frieze. And it takes me over then, the powerlessness, the leaden weight of powerlessness. All I can do is reach deep into the lost for his voice. I need to hear his voice. I need him to read to me again about his beloved birds, the hoopoe and the homa and the nightingale, and all the little birds full of fear with tears in their eyes, wandering through the valleys of bewilderment and stupefaction, searching for the truth.